No doubt about it. We said, no doubt about it. We say that every single day. That was very kind of you to hook Erica up like that. Don't forget about your host. Just kidding. So as we, I'm just kidding. As we talked about, the attack on what we, so if there's anything, I'm a student of history. If there's anything that we could potentially learn from this moment, is that we as Americans in general, thank you, Heather. We as Americans in general thank you guys. We take what we have for the liberties and freedoms for granted. And I'm hoping that maybe this will be an opportunity to kind of change that outlook on things about why it's so important to have a free press, why it's so important to be able to practice whatever religion you see fit or none at all, or why it's so important to have due process protections under the law, or why it's so important to be able to have access to firearms, whatever that might be. So those inalienable rights are granted to us by the Constitution, not by God, by the Constitution. We talked earlier about the assault on literature. And again, that is to control a particular narrative so that we can keep white people white. Don't forget, Pete Hegseth bragging that they've got 99.9% of the way there to erase history or references to black and brown people because he's a white nationalist. So it tracks. So let's talk a little bit more about that. So if anti-racist books are a threat, but white supremacy isn't, we have to ask this question. Is American patriotism just another word for white power? SecDef Pete Hegseth oversaw the removal of books critical of racism from the Navy's reading lists and internal libraries, including over 380 titles at the U.S. Naval Academy alone. These books included works by prominent historians and anti-racist scholars such as Maya Angelou. The aim was to remove, in their words, divisive materials, but what was kept raises more serious concerns. Mein Kampf, Schmittler's Manifesto, Yahtzee ideology, and anti-Semitic hatred remains accessible within the Navy's library system. Mein Kampf outlines his racist worldview and plans for an ethnic cleansing. Other controversial works tied to race and identity are still on the shelves, including The Bell Curve, a book that suggests a link between race and intelligence, is a theory widely discredited and condemned as racist. Another example is The Camp of the Saints, a French novel praised by white nationalists for its portrayal of non-white migrants as a violent threat to Western civilization. It's been cited in far-right manifestos and continues to fuel anti-immigrant rhetoric today. Interesting. When books by Maya Angelou are banned, but Mein Kampf remains, this isn't just censorship, it's a blueprint, and it tells us exactly who this country was built to protect. The purge isn't just about books. Removing anti-racist literature while preserving white supremacist texts reflects a broader ideological agenda, one that aligns with ongoing efforts to dismantle DEI initiatives across the Department of Defense. What are your thoughts on that type of censorship, Erica? You're muted. You're still muted. Okay, I'll answer. It's disturbing. That's what it is. I think. Again,
sorry, I got a package delivered. You were asking me a question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. What was that? You got what?
Someone delivered me a package.
Hey now.
Okay, sweet. Okay. Wait a minute. I've got something better than that. Somebody delivered you a package? Sorry. Okay. The question that I asked you was when we go through this exercise of what books are being banned and why free speech is being suppressed. It's not just that it's anti-racist. It's more about propping up white supremacy. It's more about white Christian nationalists, in particular white Christian nationalist men, realizing that within 20 years, white people will no longer be the predominant race in our country. So they are doing everything they can to hold on to power. Like we talked about with Vesey earlier, this approach to vaccines. We know that large metropolitan urban area medical centers are the ones that are targeted. We know that by design, there's medical racism that exists in our country. We know that outcomes for women, black women and white women who've got the same conditions, the mortality rate is higher with black women because of medical racism, et cetera. We know that schools in marginalized communities by and large are underfunded exponentially compared to others. We know that the assault on public education is by design because people with privilege will have access to these charter schools or private schools that other marginalized communities don't. So you're, like somebody said this earlier, thinning the herd, dividing the country even further. The haves, the whites, the have-nots, everybody else. Thoughts, Erica?
I'm going to get annoyed. Someone in the comments said it's not going to work. That ship has already sailed. No, it's only already sailed if you let it. If you might be willing to resign yourself to fascism. You might be quite okay with that. In fact, it might be what you want, and you might be here to try and convince other people that it's too late. It is not too late. And it's only too late when the last person has stopped fighting. That's when it's too late. But until
Erica,
then, it's not too late. Yes.
When is the best time to plant a tree?
Now.
Yesterday, but the next best time is today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good morning, Shay. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
Doing all right. What's on your mind?
I've been wanting to ask your opinion of this for a week or so now. I have a gay best friend who me and him were talking, and I was telling him, like, I just don't understand how, like, conservatives and Republicans can have so much, like, hate and want to go backwards and all this stuff. And we were having that discussion, and he said something really interesting I wanted to know your opinion on. And you were just talking about white men. I know you say it's all white men until it's no white men. His theory is that the left, pretty much, and liberals have told white men, you're the problem, you're the problem, you're the problem, while the right has tried to, garner those people in, and that's why we're in what we're in. What's your opinion on that?
My opinion remains that it's all men until it's no men. It's all white people until it's no white people. So that's think. Well, just think about that. Think about that conversation, right? So the right has been able to convince the people who are at the core of most of the problems that you've been a victim, that you're under assault by wokeness, that you're under assault by immigrants, that you're under assault by DEI. You can't achieve things because they're setting things up for black people to succeed. Come to the safe space over here. Meanwhile, Republican policies do not support their newly found members of their community, so to speak.
Right.
So it's an easy response. In my opinion, it's an easy retort. Say, okay, well then, why are the Republican Party taking away your rights to claim to love? Why are they putting you in bankruptcy? Why are they raising your prices? Why are they giving money to billionaires and not you? Why are they telling you that you're going to succeed? Where's all the success?
Right. Yeah.
And other people climbing up does not mean that you are pushed lower, right? And I think this is the thing, is white men in particular have been the top of the tree for so long that now even equity and equality seem like oppression. And Steve and I have conversed on this a number of times. I think that sitting in a little bit of guilt about what we have done as a group, or what I have done as an individual, that's not a bad thing. The feeling of guilt is not a bad thing. It's what makes us accountable for our actions. And feeling a little bit of guilt. People shouldn't be so uncomfortable with guilt that they just, what is happening, and this is happening particularly with young white men, is they are so uncomfortable with guilt that they can't, that they just push it away and choose to ignore it and choose to make themselves the victim of that. let's be honest, everybody else has been the victim of white people for the whole of human history. And
Correct.
so, you know, trying to right the wrongs of the past, it shouldn't be something that that makes us feel uncomfortable. It's evolution.
I love that you
Shay,
said that they think equality is oppression. I love that you said
correct.
that.
It's
I
true.
love
Who
that.
did
Yeah.
who did your friend vote for?
He voted for Kamala.
Kamala.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, he did. And he doesn't like what's going on and everything like that. But he gets upset with me whenever we try to have this conversation because he's like, why do you bother watching these things? Like, you're not going to change their minds. So we kind of get in little arguments a lot of the times because I watch a lot of political stuff. He's kind of sick of hearing about political stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I like the topic because it's by design. So he was referencing what was by design by the right because middle class rural voters used to be a white voters for the most part, middle class, even middle to lower class, blue collar white voters used to be a core element within the Democratic Party, right? So as the country got more and more liberal, by ideologically speaking, that attracted more people to that particular side. So the right had a choice to make. They said, we cannot compete on policy. We don't have policy that is popular amongst the majority of Americans. We just don't. So instead, we need to shift our conversation. This started with Christian nationalists going after Roe v. Wade. So they couldn't come out and say, we want to be a white Christian nationalist nation. Instead, they needed to define divisive topics by claiming that people who support a woman's choice, a woman's right to her body, are baby unalivers. So they use that similar type of rhetoric. And then they started to go as black women in particular became, as they were becoming the most educated group in our nation, realizing that mediocre white men cannot compete anymore and they would lose jobs to members of the BIPOC community, and realizing that immigrants were harder working than they were, the right message machine decided to say, all right, you guys are the victims. You're under assault. You're under threat. Come over here. The Democrats have abandoned you. So it worked. It worked. You can look at the exit polls. You can look at how, as I say every single day, it's white people that are holding us back because white people, by and large, in particular white men and a lot of white women, vote for people who are literally voting to only preserve their whiteness, not protect their rights, not protect their rights, not defend their rights to their autonomy, not defend their constitutional rights, only to, in their mind, help them preserve their whiteness. That is incredibly dangerous, but that's what happened, and it worked very, very well.
Yeah.
Very well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I got to get in here and go to work and see these babies, but thank you so
Thank you,
much for
Shay.
your opinion.
We love you. See you later.
I want to be really, really clear on that. It is really important to acknowledge that when you have a level of privilege that is not earned, just comes from the color of your skin, and you have been born into a society which promotes that privilege. It is the case that equality for many people feels like oppression, and it I lots of us are constantly deconstructing. Steve knows we talk about this all the time. I'm constantly thinking that thing I said, or that thing I did, or that opinion I have of that person, is that internalized misogyny? Is that internalized racism? Is that, is that a product of how I've grown up and what's around me, or is that a conclusion I would have come to without any of that influence? And it's really important to be reflective and to be able to sit in guilt sometimes. It does us good as humans. That is what we would not be able to go into the head. I've said this before. Going to the principal's office at school and being made to sit outside. The bad part was not the being told off by the principal. The bad part was the sitting outside of the principal's office and have everybody see you and feeling guilty about what you did. That was the bad part.
I used to say that to my kids when they were acting up in public when they were little. I would look at them and I would say it loud enough so other people around could hear. Aren't you guys so embarrassed by your actions? And that would immediately shut them up. Anyway, hi, Sherry. How are you today?
I'm doing good, Steve. How are you?
Fine, thank you. What's on your mind?
Oh, hey, Erica, too. I wanted to say, Erica, I just enjoy you so much, and I appreciate you a lot. Thank you for everything that you do.
Thanks, Sherry. That's a lovely thing for you to say. I really appreciate it.
I was just thinking about, I'm an older person, and my dad, I think I've told you this before, my daddy was kind of stern and strict. And my only thing my daddy would have to say to me was, Sherry Jean. And when he put the Jean in there, I knew whatever I was doing at that moment, I needed to stop. And I think we lost a little bit of that. He never hit me or anything. It was never abusive. But I just knew when he said something, I had to listen. But anyway, I don't know why that came to me. I just was thinking about that. But I also think that that kind of teaches you a discipline that you can't be, you have to keep yourself straight and you have to know how to talk to people. And I know that Ted Cruz's office, I live in Texas, big old red Texas, I'm a blue dot. Because then I can talk to a person. And the last conversation I had, we were discussing Social Security. The young lady I was talking to said, well, Ted Cruz doesn't believe in doing anything to Social Security. He's not going to vote that way. And he also said, it's in Project 2025. And I said, whoa, let's back up a minute. I thought that Ted Cruz and Donald Trump both said that they were going to follow that Project 2025. And the girl just shut up. So I was, I backed that up with an email and everything to him. So I want to encourage everybody, even if you're, like I have broken both my legs. So it's hard sometimes for me to get out. I mean, I'm walking and everything and they're healed. But I have the fear of falling again. So sometimes when you're older, you can't do the things. But I can get on the phone and just tell them and let them hear opposite voices that you're not going to support that. I have 5 granddaughters who have got to grow up in this. I do not want to have I'll just say this. I don't want to have a with child granddaughter in Texas because it scares me to death. Because they're not doing right by women. And we have a lot of work to do. And so we all need to get busy and do it. And I know it gets every day. I say, I haven't called my representatives, but I try to do it every single day. You can look up and see Babin hears me every day and Ted Cruz hears me about every day. There's always something that I could say. And
that's what it takes sometimes, Sherry. That's what it takes sometimes. Like we always encourage activism around here. We always encourage somebody doing something, and you just picking up the phone and contacting your elected officials. That's a win. That's a win. Let's keep doing that.
And it seems small. It seems like a small thing to do, but you have to, just do it.
It's not small though. It's not small. Give yourself some credit because a lot of people don't do that. So, but thank you for jumping in today, Sherry. I appreciate you very much. You have a good day. Okay,
you guys take care and keep up the good work.
Thank you. See you later. Sorry about the dog. He's been going a little nuts this morning. He's a little angry at me, apparently.
It's about doing what you can. It's about doing what is within your power to do, whatever that is, and nothing is too big or too small. You do what you can.
Good morning, Heather. Thank you for being my guinea pig earlier. Sorry I couldn't bring you up.
Oh, no, that's okay. Thank you for letting me try to be your guinea pig. I felt bad because I felt like I was interrupting Eve. I can't wait for you to listen to Eve's alliteration this morning because it was absolutely hilarious. I cannot wait for you to hear it later. It was so funny.
Okay, I'm in.
She's the best. Hi, Erica. Good morning.
Good morning, name twin, but in a different language.
Yes. I just wanted to say, I've said it up here before, but I just wanted to say it again. There's more than one way to protest, you guys. Cancel your Amazon Prime. Cancel your Target credit cards. Don't shop at Target. Don't shop at Walmart if you don't have to. There's more than one way to get out there and make your voices heard. Yes, absolutely. I will be at the protest on April 19th. I hope everybody is there who can make it. But if you can't, there's more than one way to protest. So that's just.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I get that. And Heather, this is just meant for feedback for all of us. That comes from a place of privilege because not everybody can cancel their Amazon Prime. Some people depend on Amazon deliveries. Some people depend on Walmart, whatever it might be. I hear what you're saying. It's just an example of some things that people can do, but we all have to be very careful about the situation that we're in because individual protests are just that, individual. As long as someone is doing something, then that's the whole point, right?
Yep.
I want to be mindful of that because everybody's circumstances are different. That's all I'm trying to say.
No, absolutely, and I completely agree with that. I mean, I know there are people who need medical supplies that you can only get on Amazon Prime, and I totally leave space for that. Those people aren't the people that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people who are buying things from Amazon just because they can, not, you know what I mean? Not necessarily the people who have to rely on those things. Absolutely. Like if somebody said in the comments, as a disabled person, they rely on Amazon Prime. That makes sense. There's certain things that my mom is disabled. There's certain things that she can only get on Amazon Prime. So I don't expect everybody to do it. But what you can do, you can do community Prime, right? Like if you know somebody who has Amazon Prime for those reasons, you can ask them, hey, can I use your Amazon Prime account so that multiple people don't have it? It's only one person and you could pay that person back rather than
that's a great suggestion.
Having it for yourself, because that's what we do. You know, my mom has Prime for her medical stuff, and so if somebody in the household needs something, they order it from that. So that's a way to do it as well. And then there was something else I was going to say this morning, but I don't know. What about Biden? That's all I want to know.
What about Biden? Yeah, no, it's a very fair point, Heather. And by the way, there's information regarding the April 19th rallies. It's in the link tree in my bio. Also, while you're over there, check out the link to the Unfucked America tour if you want to donate to help not only that event, but yours truly will be involved in future Unfucked America tour events. And there's Act Blue is set up for donations to the cause. So, but thank you for your voice, Heather. I always appreciate you. You have a good day. Talk to you later.
I did have one more. I had a question for you. So,
sure.
So I need some reassurance about the elections because I'm starting to get a little bit scared in a way that's. Do you still think we're going to have elections? I know me and you have been on the same page with this before. But I'm starting to kind of lose a little hope. So I need the hope, Steve.
I do. I do. I really, really do. And I think there's enough examples of how. Don't forget, executive orders are not law, right? Executive orders do not supersede the Constitution. They're by design to create chaos, distrust, misinformation. They're certainly harmful, no doubt about it. I do believe we will have elections primarily because elections are run by the states. And there are enough states that still believe in the sanctity of voting and elections that you will in fact see other elections. And maybe I might be wrong about that, but if I'm going to sit up here on my platform every single day to my 110,000 followers and say, hey guys, don't bother, there's going to be no more elections, then what's the point in fighting every day?
And if you suspect that there won't be elections, again, it's everybody's responsibility to get out and do something about that, right? So the more people who are out on the streets during these protests, the more it shows the government that people are unwilling to accept if there are not elections. So if people sit on their backside and do nothing, then anything could happen. But it's up to the people to show that they want elections.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you, Erica. I mean, I'll be at the protest, on Saturday, and I've been to that'll be my 7th protest. I was just at a protest on Saturday, and while I was there, I actually was asked to speak at a rally in my community on May 8th. So I'll be actually speaking at that rally. Because I think they saw me like on my phone and stuff, like because I was on TikTok live, walking around yelling at everyone, and not yelling, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so they actually asked me to speak at a rally. So there are people out there that are using their voices, but it's just something I just needed to hear the hope. That's all.
Yeah, listen, we know what we see, those people that are paying attention, people talk about martial law coming down on the 20th. I think a lot of it is fear mongering. I think we should assume the worst and then hope for the best. And if what we talk about every day up here does not motivate people to say that this shit is happening and it's real, then I don't know what will. But I still firmly believe that there will be elections, and members of the Republicans in the House know it. They're afraid of it. They can't stop it, though, and they know that as well, with the exception of those state legislatures that are gerrymandered like crazy. But
Ohio's incredibly, Ohio's very, very, very gerrymandered.
So many states are. But keep the faith, Heather. Okay, thanks for being here today. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
You got it. See you later. I mean, listen, there's talk about martial law. So the 20th is a big day because the 20th would mark 90 days since the Trump administration had asked the report from DHS and the Pentagon regarding the invasion at the border. I think that's important because keep in mind, there was a True Social post this morning that said this: border crossings hit all-time record low in March. Okay, so if that's the case, then it's no longer an invasion, even though it never was an invasion. But if the president is coming out now and saying that border crossings hit an all-time record low, then what is the justification for initiating the Alien Enemies Act and the Insurrection Act and then using the U.S. military at the border? Why then would you need to do that? These are the things that we need to keep our eyes peeled for. Okay.
Norby, we have spoken about that already this morning.
I didn't catch that. Good morning, Cage. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing today?
We are doing. What's on your mind?
Well, first of all, good morning, Erica. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning.
Everybody's protesting in their own way. Of course, we're not out in the streets because we're trying to make sure we keep everybody else safe. I don't put it past him to instill martial law. I think because he has not been able to antagonize us and provoke us and trigger us, that he's just going to use any excuse. He was hoping we would be the excuse, but we haven't given that to him. So all I can tell you
guys keep talking. I'll be right back.
Okay. All I can tell you is I love the backdrop. Those are the problem. Conservatism by nature, we know that we have a president who is willing to use lethal force. So we're protesting with our dollars, but we're also doing a lot of things to help to boost this. We're on TikTok, we're on social media, but make no mistake, we are not going to be the cause of the martial law. We are keeping everyone else safe. We are even telling our Latino and Hispanic community, don't go out there as well, because we don't want them harmed. We don't want ICE to be out there lurking in the shadows, looking for people. So one of the things I think, yes, lethal force. He said that during the campaign. and we took that very seriously. Did you really think that we wouldn't be out in the streets if there wasn't a compelling reason? I mean, we are the community that goes out and protests the most. Why do you think we're not out there? We take a lethal threat very seriously. So I don't know what's going to happen on the 20th. I'm with Steve. Prepare for the worst, but hope for the best. I'm hoping that, like the tariffs, it's a bluff. But I don't think that anybody should put it past him. So for those of you who are protesting, and if you will be out on the 20th or days like that, the 20th looks like it's a Sunday, so I don't think there are going to be that many people out. But if you are out, do like we have been recommending: cover your faces, make sure you have cash for bail, make sure your people know where you are, have safe spaces during the protest, meeting places so that everybody can know that everyone's accounted for. These are things that are very important. If you have to resort to defending yourself, have mace, have things like that. You can use non-lethal means to protect yourself. But the main thing is, if he does instill it, please keep yourselves safe. And I'm telling you this as a member of the Black community, it can be done, but you have to have those things in place. You have to know where your people are. You have to have meeting places. You need to make sure that everybody is accounted for. Make sure everybody is have each other as your emergency contacts on your phone as well, so that if something happens, somebody's alerted immediately. Have your locations on your GPS for everybody so you can find each other quickly. The main thing is, now that this threat is looming, take it seriously. Everything that he says he's going to do, he usually does. I mean, we have a big child running the country right now, and every time he throws a tantrum, everybody pays for it. So keep yourself safe. Continue to boycott what you can. I heard the caller earlier. I'm sorry, the lady on the panel earlier. I have a Prime account as well. I only use Prime for textbooks because it's the cheapest place that I can get. Steve, you know how expensive the books are when you're getting a master's degree, and it's the only. So, textbooks can be as much as $200-300. So if you have to use Prime, use it sparingly. There are other places that you can go. If that's the only route that you have for prescription drugs or things like that, no one is going to fault you. No one's going to fault you if you have to get your prescriptions at Walmart. No one's going to fault you for that. The main thing is, don't buy any excessive purchases from these places. There are other websites you can go to.
It's the consumerism. I think we talk about this many times, and thank you for that, Cage. We talk about this many times. We are a consumption society. We are entitled as Americans. It's why we have DoorDash and Uber Eats and all these programs, because we don't want to wait. Not that other places don't have it. We don't want to wait. We don't want to be inconvenienced. We think about all the videos we see of people losing their shit on an airplane. People that just, when the plane lands, everybody in the back of the plane rushes to get up to be the first one on the plane, when we all have to wait like cattle in the corral. So because of that, we want things at our disposal. So the question then becomes, if you don't need it, then why buy it?
Exactly.
Right? Make those conscious decisions, because how do you impact a billionaire? You go after their fucking money.
Yes.
That's what they want. I was literally on a panel with somebody the other day, and they're saying, well, billionaires have money. Why would they want any more money? Because that's what they do. They want more money. That's the whole point of this. So if there are changes that you can make in your life, if you can buy local more, if you can buy from a small business owner, if you can go to a co-op, or if you can go to a farmer's market, then try to do that. Now, you might pay a little bit more because that's what you get in those situations. But is it worth it to kind of shift your practices a little bit? Again, if you are able. But I appreciate you bringing that up, Cage. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Also, I'm seeing some really great comments in here. Yes, bring first aid kits, plenty of water.
First aid kits, water.
One thing that made a couple of us in my community angry about some of the protesters were we, as people who go out and protest and have to deal with the police, it wasn't very reassuring to hear people talking about bringing their kids, making it more family friendly, having bouncy houses, having food trucks. You're not there for that. So for those of you who don't understand what's at stake, you shouldn't be thinking about those things. You should bring a lunch. You should bring your water. You should bring a first aid kit. You should not be bringing your children. We don't bring our children to protest because there's always a chance that the police will harm us. And we definitely don't want to put our kids at risk, not even our teenagers most of the time. I mean, if you have an 18-year-old, that's one thing because they're old enough to do that. But we're not going to be putting our kids at risk. So please, 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 I know a lot of you want your kids to be active and understand what's going on. Do not bring them to protest. You don't know what could happen.
It's fair advice, as always, Cage. I appreciate you joining us today, friend. Thank you for being here, as always.
Thanks a lot. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you later. See you. I saw somebody make this comment. White people need to be a barrier between law enforcement and the BIPOC community and the LGBTQIA community and women. Use your privilege. Use it. Use it like you've never used it before. Be in it. Be uncomfortable. Accept the fact that you have it and use it. This came in, by the way, as what Cage was talking. I saw this on X. Today, lawyers who practice in the District of Columbia will vote to see if Pam Bondi's brother, Paul Bondi, should be the president of the DC Bar Association. The DC Bar could become a venue for resolving complaints about the conduct of Trump allies. So, no, we don't want that to happen now, do we?
Nepotism? No.
Nepotism much?
Not.
Yeah, no. No, surely not. Everybody keep tapping and share. We're only at 188, guys. I know we had to restart, but I can only go to 11 today. I've got a little capitalism and then just a couple of programming notes. Back here tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Then we'll do debate night tomorrow night. We had some success with our first round last week, so we'll do debate night tomorrow night at 7 Eastern time. No show on Friday because my daughter leaves for France on Friday, so I'll be bringing her to the high school for their departure. So no show on Friday. So regular time tomorrow, regular time on Thursday, debate night tomorrow night at 7, and now it's Toodle's turn. Good morning, friend. How are you?
Before Toodles talks, can I just tell you something really funny that happened in a live yesterday morning?
Sure.
So I was told by a Trumper that the president during the Second World War was, wait for it, Harriet Tubman.
I actually have that. Hold on.
You heard it here first, guys. Harriet
And by the
Tubman.
way, in case you guys were wondering,
I am Steve.
there you go. Sorry, go ahead. Yes, Toodle. Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, or Dobre Utra, or I might be starting to say Guten Morgen because I'm not sure if we're Russia or if we're 30s Germany now. I don't know.
Yeah, wie geht's?
So maybe combine the two, Dobre Morgen,
Yeah.
or
Sure. That
or
works.
Guten Utra. I don't know. With the likes of Timu Goebbels, Stephen Miller, and Krasnov, I just don't know. But that's why that's why I wanted to come up. Was of course you were talking about the Lugan Press, how that reformed in 2014 and has moved into what was it? What was that press secretary that she coined fake news?
Kellyanne Conway.
Oh, sorry. Alternative facts is what she said.
Alternative facts.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. I think we've moved even further from that. We're now into like the recreation of reality.
There's a playbook, and that's the thing that the right doesn't want to accept. It's that there's a playbook. It's the reason we call it out is because it's there. It's not our fault that they're following, autocratic, authoritarian dictatorship playbooks.
Oh, for sure.
They just don't want to accept that they are, right?
Indeed. I mean, we had Sharpies on NOAA charts for hurricanes, and now we have the entire department being eliminated, altogether.
Correct.
It all reminds me of in 1984, I think towards the end, the famous quote is, the party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final and most essential command. And
exactly.
We're seeing that play out, and just makes me
final
sick.
Command. That's exactly right.
I do have a recommendation though, which kind of falls along the line we've been talking about. Some good shows to watch, like The Pit. There's a documentary, and Erica, maybe you're familiar with this gentleman. It's Adam Curtis on the BBC. He often comes out with some really excellent documentaries, and he's got one called it's from the 90s. It's called Hypernormalization. I don't know if you're familiar with that one or not, but what it is, it's...
Sorry, I just got another delivery.
Oh.
Apparently it's delivery day, chez moi. I didn't say I got a package this time. Like, come on.
It could be the rugby team could have showed up at your door. None of us will know.
Air quotes, package.
Apparently I've subscribed to something, which I didn't realize I'd subscribed to, so that's fine. That felt like there was a key change. I don't know.
Anyway, the hypernormalization documentary, and I think you can watch it free on YouTube. You don't have to like dig too far to find it. But it's about like the end of the Cold War era. It kind of takes you through the 60s to the 80s and how they wanted to reshape the world post, the postmodern world. But they really talk about where the term hypernormalization comes from, which it came out in the Soviet Union, where late communism was failing, but they wanted to present to the world that it was still working. So everybody was pretending that everything was just fine. Bread lines were huge, and people were starving, but everybody had to toe the party line or risk being gulagged. And I feel like we're getting to that where we're hyper normalizing the situation to accept this new reality as reality. It's just, and it's the road we don't want to go on.
Toto, that's a really good point, right? The fact that like I say this a lot, it'd be great to wake up one morning and have something be precedented for a change, because everything these days is unprecedented. And I think you touch on something that's interesting about how we are now potentially falling into the trap of accepting everything that they do in an attempt to normalize it, meaning that, they're just going to continue to do this and they're going to do that, and they're not going to pay attention to the law, and they're going to violate the Constitution, and who's going to stop them? And we fall into their own trap, as opposed to saying this is unacceptable. I mean, yes, we say it here, but not enough, right? Not enough. Like it's interesting you brought that up. And I worry about people falling into that. They'll just be compliant because they're exhausted.
And the news cycle feeds into that big time. I mean, when's the last time we've been screaming about the Signal chat and just how illegal that was? That that was wiped out by tariffs. Now we've forgotten about tariffs. We're talking about the SCOTUS 9/0 decision being ignored.
Yeah, or homegrown threats, right?
Yeah. So what is it going to be next week after next Sunday, when they try to invoke the Insurrection Act to get around posse comitatus? Are we going to say, are we going to forget about that in a week when our neighbors start to disappear off the streets?
Well, I had I think it's really important as well. Like, I had a conversation with a Trumper the other day, as we all know, I love to do. And they were telling me about how far left the Democrats were, right? And how communist and socialist the Democrats are. So I asked
communist, socialist, Marxist, and fascist. I'd like to say that we're all of those.
One from each column. And I maybe two from the communist column. I don't know.
Right.
But I asked them to give me an example of a far left policy of the Democrats. And they could not do that. They couldn't. And I said, so where do you think that idea has come from, that the Democrats are far left? And they said, probably the media. Yeah, probably the media. And this is I think this is the thing. When the Overton window has been moved so far to the right, not just in the US, but in a lot of countries right now, the Overton window is skewed so far right that when something that a Democrat would have done 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, is being called far left. But those same people aren't calling out the Republicans for being far right, it shows you that the window of acceptability has moved. And that doesn't happen all in one go. Like you say, it's incremental. It happens in small stages. So first of all, we start to accept one thing as being normal. And then gradually we are all dragged further to the right. And the challenge for the Democrats, which I personally think is where they failed this election, was they got dragged further right. And that's for me, that's where they failed. And this, and I think that's exactly what you're saying, Tutal, is we've begun to accept, even people on the left have begun to accept these things as being normal. And we have to really dig ourselves into that sand and not let ourselves be moved, right?
100%. I mean, we've moved so far, right? We're going to fall off the cliff, and
Well, yeah, and I'm glad you both brought that up, because yes, we know that ideologically, first of all, America's never been left. I mean, we've always been center moderates, although more people in our country do believe in what would be considered radical left ideas from the right, which would be universal health care, which would be overfunding public education, which would be responsible approaches to firearm violence, change the tax policy, et cetera, et cetera. The problem is, Steve, I was trying to find the sound from Steve Bannon. He talked about this, about the chaos, the muzzle velocity of misinformation. We're going to throw 9,000 things up against the wall to distract everybody, and we'll be able to slide a couple of things through. Like, for example, we're talking about President Bukele in the Oval Office, and Donald Trump saying that, listen, we'll send you our homegrown baddies and you could lock them away as well. Signalgate, tariffs, assaults on federal funding for colleges and universities. Meanwhile, the SAVE Act gets passed in Congress, right? Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, this massive budget is going to cut more social services. Meanwhile, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security under attack. Those kinds of things. So he's right. And that is, Steve Bannon, being he, is right, because that's always been their tactic. We're going to flood the zone, as Benny said it. We're going to flood the zone with as much chaos, misinformation as possible. Some of it we know is bullshit, but we'll distract. Like the whole tariff thing. You notice that he has to have Bukele in the Oval Office to try to keep the conversation about tariffs on the back burner, because now Fox is going to be talking about this person, Mr. Garcia, whose rights were violated, although they will claim that he was identified as an MS-13 gang member, which we know he wasn't, in an attempt to avoid conversations about the harm that these policies are doing to the American public. 100%. It's by design. 100%. It's the plan. It is the strategy. It's the same strategy you saw in autocratic regimes. It's the same strategy that Schmittler used to identify those people that they could scapegoat. Don't forget, Schmittler sold his rise to power on returning Germany to greatness. Make Germany great again. Economic reform, industrialization, manufacturing. Once he convinced the German people that I'm the man for the job, then it didn't matter what he said, because they were all in.
Totally.
All part of the same playbook.
And one more recommendation I have too is another free documentary you can find online. It's called Putin's Way. It's a Frontline from PBS, and I don't know if you're familiar. They are an amazing, middle of the road, fair documentary, creator. They just do such great work. But that one, it's from 2015, so it's not as relevant, of course, but it really tells Putin's story. And when I was talking about hypernormalization, it talks about how he grew up during that time, and in his authoritarian way, he wants to recreate the world to his reality, and he's got Krasnov to assist now.
He sure does. Tutal, thank you, my brother, for being here. As always, I appreciate you. Have a good day.
Not a problem. Bye, lovely Erica.
See you, buddy. So we talked about the assault on Harvard earlier, and meaning that Harvard has basically said, whatever, do what you're going to do. This is bullshit. So on True Social, Trump has responded by saying, perhaps Harvard should lose its tax-exempt status and be taxed as a political entity if it keeps pushing political, ideological, and terrorist-inspired supporting sickness. Remember, tax-exempt status is totally contingent on acting in the public interest. That's an interesting response. Love that. So nice of him. I've got something for Obi, too. Dude, I have your own intro. You ready?
Yes.
Hello there.
Oh, dude, I just got hard. Sorry.
Hello there.
Woo! Hey now.
Wow, it's early. It's only 7:30. Hey, what'd you have for breakfast? Hey now.
Hey now.
How are you today,
fact,
sir?
I am very well. I'm making our wife matzah brie. It's a Jew
Passover.
Thank you.
Sure.
I just want to put this out as someone who is pro-labor. Perhaps instead of protesting by not purchasing, what you could do is take that money and give it to the pro-labor organizations that are attempting to unionize at Target and Amazon. Because here's the thing, right? You're not purchasing something from Amazon does not hurt any executive at Amazon. You're not taking their money. You're taking the money of the workers who live in an area in which that is the sole employer. That's who you're hurting. So if we're going to talk about being progressives, can we get back to talking about labor issues? Because I don't hear us talking about that anymore. Right?
It's a really good point.
If we're for the community, well, then let's prove we're for the community by actually doing something that helps the community, right? Which is, listen, there are people who can only get jobs at Amazon. It's not their fault.
That's a good point.
Now, it may be that historically they voted for the GOP, which then helped the crushing of all local businesses until you only got big box businesses in their state. That's a separate argument. But let's focus on the fact that what we should be doing is helping the pro-labor movement, because it has been under assault for the last 40 years, and it alone is what created the middle class. And I don't hear enough people talking about pro-labor stuff. I hear a lot of people talking about, well, I'm going to move my money here because of this. Well, again, how is it that we're going to reach people in Ohio or Kentucky or Missouri or any of the areas in which the only employers that will give them anything close to a decent wage is going to be an Amazon warehouse or a Walmart warehouse? Listen, I don't want to support these companies either, but I'm not going to sit up here and be a hypocrite and talk about how I'm for pro-labor and supporting unions and having grown up in a union household, and then pull my money out of Amazon knowing that the brothers and sisters who are actually struggling in the labor movement are the ones that get hurt. Jeff Bezos is never going to get hurt by you protesting Amazon. He's already a billionaire. He's not going to be a less billionaire.
I think it's more, I hear what you're saying. I think in many cases, like we're always advocating for people to do something. So if that's something that someone can do is to stop, especially if they don't need the advantages of Amazon Prime, if that is something they can do, even though it may be symbolic, it is still something that people can do. I want to encourage people to do something. Your point is valid, on these micro levels, but if the movement is there to resist our dependency on the convenience of capitalism, then that potentially has impact. So I don't want to discourage somebody from saying, I'm going to cancel my Prime subscription because I don't need it, even though full well that may not ultimately impact Bezos. I just want to be consistent with our message that we are encouraging people to do something. I think that's
1,000%. I'm just trying to get people who claim to be progressives. I'm not talking about you. I've had enough conversations. I'm talking about people that come up here talking about being progressives. I don't hear anybody, and I can't remember literally in probably the last year, anybody other than this communist that's talking to you right now coming up and talking about pro-labor issues. What the fuck?
It's a fair point. It's a fair point.
Right?
It's a very
Like,
fair point.
can
we have our
can we get-
protections. We have our protections in the workplace because of labor unions and because of labor. And
That's
we
correct.
have weekends off and we have a 40-hour work week and we have organizations like OSHA because of labor.
Right. So
it's a good point.
So do what you can. I'm not saying don't do what you can, but what I'm saying is, I would like people to start talking about, I've decided to shift my money to this. By the way, here are some orgs you can help. I don't have the URL for the Amazon Union Fighters, but it's all over fucking Google. It won't take 2 seconds to find it. How about people saying, I've stopped my Amazon Prime. I therefore now gave $100 to this pro-labor organization or something, right? Because these people have literally lost everything when they've gone out on strikes, and they've tried to fight through the court system for the unfair firings, right? And to fight the literal billions of dollars that are being spent by Target, Walmart, and Amazon to fight unions, and how they literally hire like Gestapo-esque staff to spy on people, right? And to prevent this from happening. That to me is the actual problem, right? It's not Jeff Bezos at this point, right? It's the fact that we've enabled a system in which we, and I'm talking about fucking white dudes, have sat by year after year, decade after decade, and watched them, because we have the privilege to watch them whittle this down to nothing. And then what? What the fuck are we doing? Is my question.
That's fair. That's fair feedback. And I do not want to discourage people from doing something. If the only thing that they can do is cancel some of their convenience in life, then I fully support it. And I fully support it. I thought I might hear from you today, Jess. Good morning.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm really good. I mean, I'm not really good. I'm not actually. My mental health is in the trash can. Um, but yeah, but my campaign, I'm running for office, so I guess that's great. I'm gonna protect democracy in my little corner of the world. Anywho, yeah. So if anyone, you want to know the number?
Well, so just to level set, you had a fundraising goal that by the end of March, if you hit your goal, myself and another creator that we know and love, if you hit your goal, said that we would glitter our beards.
Correct.
So,
Correct. So my goal is 100,000. And based on what my finance director told me, we raised $115,000.
Well, there you go. Congratulations. Hold on.
Yes.
I think I have something for you. That's awesome. Yeah, that's fabulous. So we can talk offline, but I am fully in support of your cause. I am so happy to do it. I think you were down to like 30 grand the last day. So that might have been that must have been an amazing day.
Yeah, I think in the last, I think that was actually like 4 days out. So last 24 hours, we were within like 3,000, and then a pretty significant check came in the mail that day, which was huge. And then we ended up having a handful of other people step in the last hour and do some pretty good donations. And we had a lot of small donors. So the combination thereof put us well over our goal, which I'm very excited about.
Well, we'll do this a little
bit.
But
I'm not excited about the constitutional crisis. But let's dance.
That's incredible, Jess. That's really, really, really incredible. When I figured you'd get there, that's amazing. You should be proud of yourself.
Thank you. Can we now impeach this man, please?
Well, We can't because American conservatives are the problem.
I know.
So, I think we've, people asked us earlier as to whether or not, I'll ask you this question. Do you think we're going to have elections?
I think we're definitively going to have state elections. I would like to think we're going to have midterms. I'm really in a very I'll be honest, I have not slept very well the last several days. Last night especially. I don't feel good about what's happening. And I don't feel like the right people. Well, like you said, the conservatives are not stepping up. We already saw that he did in a recent executive order. I don't know how many people are aware of this. So he kind of tried to executive order the SAVE Act, but on steroids. And one of the things is basically it's telling every state that they cannot have a federal election. This is what his executive order says. You cannot have a federal election until you check all the boxes that we have put forth in this document, and we have approved that you are meeting those qualifications. So in other words, saying we won't count your state in a federal election.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that in our system of government, remember that the states run the federal elections. That's in the Constitution. That's how it's supposed to work. So they can attempt to change all these rules if they want to.
Due process is also in the Constitution, and yet there are roughly 300 men in the El Salvadorian prison right now, and countless more in Gitmo who did not get that. So I'm not feeling real good about the Constitution and its powers right now. That's where I'm at right now. I'm not like I said, I'm trying really hard to focus on what I can do. But it's tough. Like being this tapped in all the time, and feeling some days a little more, what's the word, out of control and unable to like do anything becomes very overwhelming. And I think the last 24 hours specifically, I've kind of been in that place, which has made me like emotional. And I'm just sitting here thinking, one, have you seen the Google images? I'm sure you have, of Sitcock.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yep. Someone in the last 24 hours actually put a pin on that location, specifically the room and in the prison that in question, and called it the prisoner slaughterhouse in Spanish. Yeah. And obviously, we have not had confirmation on when that image, the date on that image. We don't obviously, but even that image existing means that really heinous shit has happened there at some point, and that could include right now. So I'm disheartened that there are people sitting there that have not had a single day in court. The 60 Minutes thing showed that 70% of them had no criminal record whatsoever. I don't care who you are, I don't care where you land politically. This should terrify the fuck out of you. You should be screaming at the top of your lungs. You should be calling your elected officials every day, inundating them with demands to impeach this person, to do something, because at this point, they are really, the judicial branch is being shown in real time they have no power. So unless Congress acts, I don't know what that leaves us with.
I think I hear what you're saying. The judicial branch does have power, but it takes the executive branch accepting the decisions and the determinations of the judicial branch. That's the issue, right? So it's still currently we still have a three branches of government. We still have that, but when you're just going to ignore it and then claim to be that you're the party of the rule of law, that's the problem.
Right. And it's also worth noting, and this is the part that bothers me. I'm having conversations with the people that live in my community right now on Facebook, okay, that are real human beings that vote in my community, in my district. And I'm very active on like Facebook and Nextdoor for this reason. that are literally saying he's an MS-13 person. That's why he's there. I'm like, we have no evidence of that. Yes, we do. What evidence do you have? And their quotes are from Pam Bondi. Their quotes are from, and I said, Stephen Miller, Pam Bondi, and Carolyn Levitt all yesterday did a media blitz tour. Not only what happened in the Oval Office, but then afterwards on Fox News, on Twitter, basically pushing this narrative. That man, from what we do know about his court records and the two first instances where he was denied legal entry before he was granted legal entry in 2019, what we do know is he was 16 when he came into this country. What we do know is that he came to live with a sibling who was a U.S. citizen, was apparently born here, and basically use that sibling to evade threats from a local gang. We don't even know if it was MS-13. There was no definitive. But my argument to them is always, he was sent there under the guise that he was a Venezuelan gang member. You understand that, right? He's not Venezuelan. So the fact that you are pivoting, saying that he was sent there for this, they're admitting that he's not that. He's a totally different, he's literally El Salvadorian. And they admitted to the administrative mistake. And you're still saying it's the right decision. No. The Fifth Amendment says all persons, not all citizens, not all people that got their legal status, all persons are guaranteed rights to due process.
Same
all
in the
persons.
14th. Exactly.
Yes.
Yep.
This is not a if you have feet on our soil, we guarantee you your time, your day in court.
And
you spoke. Go ahead, Erica.
Oh, I was just going to say, if what the US is now saying is if you're not a citizen, you have no rights to due process in the US, then you can expect there to be no visitors from any other country ever again. Because who wants to go on their nice vacation to Florida where if they get in a road traffic accident, they have no right to due process? But this is like, this is those, the whole thing with El Salvador is so freaking concerning for the people that are there, and for everybody else. It's dreadful.
Well, to your point, Erica, how do we know people are not citizens? We're not taking them to court to even confirm that they're not U.S. citizens.
Exactly. That's the due process component. You mentioned 60 Minutes, and you mentioned the assault that Trump has gone after 60 Minutes. This was a Truth Social post. Almost every week, 60 Minutes, which is being sued for billions of dollars for the fraud they committed in the 2024 presidential election with their interview of failed presidential candidate Kamala Harris, mentions the name Trump in a derogatory and defamatory way. But this weekend's broadcast tops them all. They did not one, but two major stories on Trump, one having to do with Ukraine, which I say is a war that never would have happened if the 2020 election had not been rigged. In other words, if I were president, and the other story was having to do with Greenland, casting our country as led by me falsely, inaccurately, and fraudulently. I am so honored to be suing 60 Minutes, CBS Fake News, and Paramount over their fraudulent, beyond recognition reporting. They did everything possible to illegally elect Kamala, including completely and corruptly changing answers to interview questions. But it just didn't work for them. They are not a news show, but a dishonest political operative simply disguised as news, and must be responsible for what they have done and are doing. They should lose their license. Hopefully, the Federal Communications Commission, as headed by its highly respected chairman, Brendan Carr, will impose the maximum fines and punishment, which is substantial, for their unlawful and illegal behavior. CBS is out of control at levels never seen before, and they should pay a big price. Make America great again.
Well, I've just had a thought, super quick. If you are like me, not from the US, I'm going to ask you to do something, which is please get in touch with your elected representatives and begin asking now for your country not to send teams to the World Cup.
Yeah, good point. Or to the Olympics.
Or to the Olympics. Get on that now, because get on it now and keep on it, because those kind of messages are the ones that will really get through to people.
That's a good call out. And don't forget, I think the announcement came down either yesterday or the day before about 500,000 Cubans having their immigration status changed. a large chunk of the population that helped get him elected, by the way.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, this is where we sit. Everybody, I can see the fear in your voice. I can see the fear in your face, Jess. And we've been talking about this all morning. About assault on the things that we've always taken for granted around here. The collective as Americans, about the rights to due process, about protections under the law. As broken as our system is, there are some fundamental truths that exist nowhere else in the world, that we have these rights and privileges that are granted to us by our Constitution. And the party that won on being constitutionalists, or the party that stands for the rule of law, we know is just one of the biggest lies ever told on the American public. It is beyond dangerous. I need to think about wrapping up here. So as always the case, anybody who's on the panel gets last word. I will coordinate with you and with Matt so we can do this unveiling of glitter. But anything you would like to say in closing today, friend? And congratulations again, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, so obviously I'm in Q2, the second quarter. So obviously still fundraising, still super critical. In fact, honestly, while I'm not going to raise that in the 2-month time frame because that ends in earlier, I definitely need to continue to put up a good showing, because Q2 is where we kind of lost momentum last cycle, and it unfortunately lost me a lot of eyes on my campaign in the broader scheme. So if you're able to donate, if you're able to do a recurring donation at $5, $10, please hit up my ActBlue in my link tree. Go to my website. It's also listed there. Again, contact your elected officials every day, and just drive home that I made a video this morning. It was kind of a plea, and I asked people to tap